Hey guys, and welcome to Unit J over creating and processing web forms. So now we're going to get into actually designing those forms and putting that code in to see a web form that we've used for so many years in ordering and selecting items on the old interwebs. So let's go ahead and start looking at that. The objectives we're going to complete this week are we're going to look at designing a form, looking at the tasks that it takes to do that. We're going to create our form. We're going to create text fields, customize those text fields. We're going to create check boxes to use in our form. We're going to create option buttons, create a drop-down menu, and we're going to enable our form for submission. So let's go ahead and look at designing a form and the tasks that it takes to do that. Before just throwing a form together by coding it, we need to first look at planning out our form and before we actually put any code in. We need to understand what kind of information needs to go into that form. We need to make sure that our form is usable, not just a bunch of buttons and drop downs and different fields here and there. So we need to look at increasing our usability by understanding what information is needed. We need to identify the types of data required for each of those items, and we need to ensure our form is logically organized and includes explanations of our fields. Now I mentioned the word fields, and this is form elements in which a user enters or selects data. We know we've selected data on different forms on our own, but now just a little technical part of that is that those are actually referred to as fields when we are designing a form. Like I said, we need to identify the types of information we need to collect. We need to ask our customers for information, whether in a large scale business or if we have just like a private business owner that wants a web design. So we need to ask that information and get those distinct pieces. So let's ask for first and last names, and you know, when we do that in our form, we want to have those as separate fields usually. We need to clarify what we're likely to need to do with that information. We need to break down into multiple fields only if necessary for our data processing. Now when I mentioned that our form needs to have a logical flow, what I mean by that is everything needs to make sense when a user is using the form. Such things as displaying our related fields near each other. Having your first name field at the top and the last name field at the bottom of our form just doesn't make sense. We need to display fields in an order users are accustomed to. You know, it's the old interweb's been out there for quite a while now. People have been using fields. They get accustomed to a logical flow of the web pages, and we want to make sure we're consistent with that. We need to look at that if our fields should be completed in a specific order. We need to place them in a top to bottom order on our form. And we need to place fields for questions or information at the bottom of the form just because that's what our users are accustomed to. And in designing our form, we need to integrate labels and legends. And labels are those elements containing descriptive text that is associated with a form element. And a legend is a descriptive title. We add legends to field sets to further increase the usability of a form, and we'll get into using those. So let's go ahead and take a look at the mock layout that was submitted to us from our customer at Lakeland Reed's Bed and Breakfast for designing their website, and this is the form they wanted us to create. So here's that form that was drafted up for us. And you can see the flow of it. You can see how we have labels that describe the content to enter in each of these associated fields here. And you can see how each text box allows our users to enter a single line of text in the format we have here. We have legends in different spots that describes the content of each field set. And when I say field set, that's a group of form elements that are in a logical setting that are all interrelated. And you can see here at the bottom we have our text area to allow some just general text to be added, and you'll see this usually when you're requesting feedback, or if someone has some special requests such as with a hotel reservation, they can put that information in there. And you can see in our form how we have radio buttons, we have check boxes, all those elements that you've seen before, now you get to learn how to do. And you see that we end our form here with a submit button that will users can click to send data that they have provided to the server for our data collection. So let's go ahead and get into designing this form. Now that we've looked at our general design, we're going to go ahead and take that design and implement that by creating our form. Before we get started, make sure you have the documents opened up from your student data files for Unit J so that we can work on our Lakeland Reads and Bed and Breakfast website. So go ahead and make sure you have those open and ready. And we're going to go ahead and start working on creating our form. And you'll notice that a web page contains a series of nested elements. And you'll see that our field set of elements that we're going to build up here is a nested within our reserve info field set on our web page. So let's go ahead and look at that and just know that a field set element contains the elements in each section of the form, including a legend element which describes the contents of the field set. And we're going to go ahead and take a look now at our first steps for creating a form. So here are the steps that we are going to complete in creating our form. And roughly here is what we should end up with. Just remember that browsers vary in the way they present field sets by default. So the browser you're using may not match the figure exactly. All right, let's go ahead and perform these steps now. Okay, you're going to open up your htmj1.html file from your folder, and you're going to open that up in your text editor so we can make our changes. Once you've put in the code for showing your first and last name, go ahead and save your file as contact.html. Once you've saved your file as contact, go ahead and use the same information and put that into your htmj2.css file. Save this one as lakeland.css. Once you have your Lakeland Cascading Style Sheet done, go ahead and change the name for your htmj3.css file to llform. Now that you have your main HTML file and your cascading style sheets renamed, I find it necessary to open up the HTML file just to see what you're working with this week before you start making changes. That way, as you're making changes and you refresh the page, you see where you started and where you're at. Let's go ahead and take a look at that page now. So here is our contact.html opened up, and here's what we're working with so far this week. Go ahead and leave that open, and let's go back to our contact.html file in our browser, in our text editor. Alright, let's go ahead and find your H2 header. Alright, let's go ahead and find our H2 element. Now beneath our H2 element, we want to indent to match the opening H2 tag. Then we're going to insert an opening and closing form tag on separate lines. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now we've got that added. Now between our opening and closing form tags, we're going to add 4 sets of opening and closing field set tags on separate lines with ID values for contact info, reserve info, additional info, and submit button. So let's go ahead and add those now. So now we have our first set created for contact info. We've got our opening, opening and closing field set and our ID tag. We've given it the value of contact info. Let's do the same thing for reserve info, additional info, and submit info now. Alright, now we have created each of our field set tags with our values that we were instructed to do so. Next we are going to add our span element information in for our contact info field set element. Let's go ahead and add that code now. Alright, so let's go up here to our field set ID with our label of contact info, inner line, and we're going to go ahead and put our legend in with our spanning element for contact info. Make sure you indent so that you have good clean code. Now we're going to repeat that same step to add legends for our reservation information to the reserve info field set and the legend additional information to the additional info field set. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we'll go down here to reserve info, inner line, and we'll go ahead and put the legend information in here as so. And then once you've got that one entered, go ahead and go down to additional info field set and add the legend additional information. Here, now we've got that step completed. Next, we are going to go beneath the legend element in the reserve info field set up above, and we're going to add 4 sets of opening and closing field set tags on separate lines with the ID values for each to be check-in, 1 for check-out, 1 for room box, and 1 of ID value occasion box. Let's go ahead and create that now. Alright, so we'll go up here beneath our reserve info, add a line. Now we have our field set tag for check-in. Now let's do a closing. And on a separate line, we will do our close field set. Now let's repeat those same steps for our remaining ones for checkout, room box, and occasion box. Go ahead and complete those now. Once you've added all the remaining 3, your code should look like mine. And just to make sure, you can also follow along in your e-text. You can look at figure J2, which is the structuring code for our contact form, and you can see those field set elements nested within our reserve info field set. In the next step we're going to complete, we're going to work with the check-in field set. We're going to add some code there. Let's go ahead and add a legend there for the check-in date. Once we get that legend in there, we're going to repeat those same steps to add legends for checkout date to the checkout field set, rooms to reserve to the room box field set, and what's the occasion for your visit to the occasion box field set. And then once you've completed that, you can compare your work once again to figure J2 in your e-text. So let's go up here to our check-in field set. We're going to go ahead and go to the next line, and we're going to add our legend code. Now since our legend code here, the check-in date is what's going to be displayed on our web form, we're going to go ahead and not put quotes around that because we don't want quotes to be displayed when we open up our page. Now you've got that one complete. Go ahead and do your other legends that we just discussed and see how your code looks. Now we'll scroll down here and put our last one in for occasion box. And there is our legend for what's the occasion for your visit. Now that you've got those completed, go ahead and save your work, and then we're going to refresh our contact HTML in our browser and see the changes that we've made. Let's go ahead and save your work. Then open up your browser and refresh. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Now with our browser open, I'm going to go ahead and refresh, and hopefully we'll see some positive changes made here. Right away you can see that we have our form created. We have the appearance of our frame sets and our legends just as we expected, and you can compare that with figure J3 in your e-text to see how they compare. Like I said, there can be some variance in the different browsers that you may be completing your work in. This looks really good, so let's go ahead and return to our contact.html in our text editor. Next we're going to go ahead and copy our link element here that references our lakeland.css sheet. We're going to insert a new line above the favicon link element, just 2 lines below. Then we're going to paste the code from the clipboard, and then we're going to change our href value in the pasted element to llform.css to reference that sheet. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to change that to llform. Now that you've got that completed, go ahead and save your work again. Go back to your contact.html in your browser and refresh your page. Go ahead and refresh. And you can see the stylistic change take effect right away, where we have now we are referencing our llform.css for our cascading style sheet of our form. So that's it for this section for creating a form. Let's go ahead and move on to the next section for Unit J, in which we'll be creating text fields. So let's go ahead and do that now. Good work, everyone.